Alright, so today I'm going to be going over the most recent TFT patch notes for 11.24. Now, this is only the second TFT set I've ever played, and I only recently hit plat, so if I get anything wrong, I apologize. But to start off, there were some changes made to the augments that include the heart, soul, and the emblematic augs. So now all the emblem augs, such as like Academy Honors, they've been renamed to being Crest, and the Crest and Heart augments also give a unit of that trait. But the biggest change of those three comes from the soul augments, which now give two emblems instead of just having your team count is having an additional two. And that's going to have a big impact on comps that run like Innovator or Assassin. Now with Innovator Soul, you're not going to be offered it until your third augment at 4-5. So that makes it a little more balanced early in mid game. So you're not going to be fighting like a bear super early or a dragon, thank God. They also nerfed the mech bear and dragon utilities. So the bear AD and AP buff that you give to your allies went down from 25 to 20%. And the dragon crit damage buff that you got to your allies has also been reduced a ton, down from 75% to 40%. And that's going to make a big difference to late game where you'd be going for Jace carry. And they've nerfed Jace as well. So Jace's base armor and magic resist went down from 40 to 30. And his shield from 4 and 600 at 1 and 2 star down to 350 and 500. It seems like the devs want more Jace backline carries, whereas ranged attack damage gains went from 35 and 60 up to 45 and 70 instead. Now, as for how that impacts Assassins, hitting Assassin 6 is going to be a little bit more difficult now if you get Assassin Soul, as you're actually going to have to put those emblems on units. And that's going to take away from how many units you can put on your front line, and as well, there's additional nerfs to assassins like Katarina and Echo. Katarina ability damage has been nerfed from 180, 225, and 300 down to 160, 200, and 250. So the bonus AD Echo gives has also been changed from 40, 50, and 75% down to 35, 40, and 50%. So those two champs, which are usually going to be like your main two champs in like Katarina Reroll, is much less overwhelming now. But with all those changes, they did bounce the scoreboard a bit with the Trendle counter to Katarina being nerfed, and his AD still went from 20, 30, and 50 to 20, 25, and 40. And his attack speed slow from his ability on enemies decreased from 50% to 25%. So if you're trying to counter Katarina with the Trundle, having the attack speed slow being reduced down to 25% is going to make a big difference. And they also buffed Shaco a little bit, decreasing his max mana from 90 to 80, and gave him an additional 50 HP, which isn't going to make a huge difference. Overall, not a huge impact for Katarina Reroll, but I think like the Cat and Echo changes are going to have a considerable impact. And the devs did also say that they're going to consider doing another Cat nerf in the future. So, yeah. Next up, we have changes made to the Featherweight Augment, where attack speed and movement speed bonuses, they've been reduced from 25, 50, and 70% down to 30, 40, and 60%, depending on what tier of the augment you get. That means that if you're running comp around this augment like Pogma, where you're mostly going to use like 1 and 2 cost units, you might also want to hope for like Salvage Bin Augment to transition to a stronger comp late game, since Cog best in slot items don't go great on other units. Next big change we have is for Chemtech. Previously, like a hard Chemtech comp felt pretty weak without instant injection or Chemtech overload. But with these changes, the duration is always going to be the same at 8 seconds, and the attack speed and regen buffs depend on their tier. So now, attack speed buff is set at 25, 50, 75, and 100% at 3, 5, 7, and 9, and regen is 3, 4, 6, and 10%. Unfortunately, the 25% damage reduction buff that you got was removed. So this means that like Chemtech 3 and 5, it's going to be a bit of a nerf. But at 7 and 9, it's kind of a game changer, especially if you land like instant injection. Lastly, we have changes to Clockwork trait, where the attack speed buff that you get at Clockwork 4 and 6 has gone from 30 and 55% to 35 and 70%. And as far as I know, the 5, 10, and 15% attack speed bonus you get from how many augments you have still applies. So if you're running Clockwork 6 with 3 augments, that is going to be 115% attack speed bonus. And with the changes made to the soul augments, it's pretty big. because you're actually going to be able to use those emblems on units that you want rather than it just feeling like it's been wasted. So Jin also got a slight rework where his max mana has been reduced from 80 to 70 at the cost of 5 less attack damage, and his 2-star ability AD scaling went from 225% down to 200. I don't know how that's really going to change best in slot items for him. You might want to go like Deathblade instead of GS, but I'll have to see how that actually works in game. Another Clockwork unit that got a slight change, one that I'm a fan of, is Orianna. Orianna's max mana went down from 180 to 150, which means that she's going to be able to cast more. But even so, 150 is a really high mana cost, and her ability stun duration went from 1.5 to 1 second for 1 and 2 cost, or 1 and 2 star. Those are most of the big changes, but one of the small changes that's my personal favorite in this patch notes is if you somehow land a 3-star Galio, his ability damage went up from 2,000 to 9,001, which means you can say that he's over 9,000 every time he casts, and I just think that's hilarious. They made it 9,001. Additionally, Tark's healing has been nerfed from 375 and 475 at 1 and 2 stars down to 325 and 425. Socialite Duo Augment also now grants an additional 500 HP to units in the spotlight. Vex has been nerfed, so the shield went down from 550, 700, 900 to 500, 600, 750. And the stacking bonus from it being destroyed before the 4 seconds is up went down from 25% to 10%. And if you don't destroy it, the damage has gone down from 125, 200, 275 to 100, 135, 175. Garen's missing HP ability damage went down from 20 to 15%. Sion gained another 100 HP, and 2-star stun duration went up a half second. Lux now gets less mana refund on kill, so no more laser autocannons for her without Cram Session and Blue Buff, which Blue Buff also now gives an additional 20 starting mana. Grab Bag no longer gives you a Reforger. March of Progress is now Prismatic Tier Augment, and you can only get it on your first Augment, but they buffed it to 5 XP per round instead of 4. And finally, Victor's max mana went up to 150 with slightly lower damage, and Akali gained more HP with slightly higher ability damage. Thanks for watching.